Hi, doctor. Are you currently seeing patients with shoulder pain? What about frozen shoulder? What if I could teach you a neurological treatment system in which you could literally take a person from frozen shoulder to a full range of motion in 2 visits? And this system is so powerful that we guarantee results in 2 visits, or we don't accept the patient for care. What about the frustration you're going through because of the lack of the ability to help patients suffering with these shoulder problems, and the frustration of patients who come into your clinic with knee pain and you have no answer to help them except maybe a laser or some other type of modality? What if you had patients suffering with knee pain and I could teach you a neurological treatment system in which patients could see results within 2 visits? Imagine the success that you would have and the happiness that goes along with knowing that within 2 visits you could change someone's life and then put them on a care plan to constantly improve their range of motion and decrease pain. What if there were a neurological treatment system in which you had patients suffering with peripheral neuropathy and numbness and tingling and burning in the feet and people couldn't sleep at night? Imagine the frustration of that. And being able to help patients improve the quality of their life and enjoy the rest of their life with their loved ones, their families, their kids, and not worrying about falls, go out and golf and go on vacations without being any fear of falling or the return of pain, suffering, and pins and needles. Hi, I'm Dr. Andy Barlow. I'm a board certified chiropractic neurologist. I also carry a fellowship in functional neurology, and every Wednesday night at 5 p.m., I'm giving a 1-hour seminar free of charge. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help your community. I'm here to help our profession go to the next level. And what if these 3 new revenue streams that we have, frozen shoulder, knee pain, and peripheral neuropathy, what if we could actually increase your income to over $1 million a year using these 3 avenue streams? I personally look forward to seeing you every Wednesday night. I want to completely change your life and change your community's life. And I can help you do that because I've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of doctors from Europe to Canada, all the way to New Zealand with these types of health issues, okay? So I look forward to seeing you Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Central on the webinar. Have a great day. I look forward to seeing you on the internet.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Anthony with Edge on Regenerative Medicine Show, the place that brings you the #1 doctors around the world, helping you not only get better, but also get the right information. So today, we have Dr. Mark Force today out of Ashton, Oregon area, actually in my backyard. I'm in Vancouver, Washington, about 10 minutes from Portland. I wish I was closer to him, just a little bit nicer, my personal opinion. But other than that, everyone in social media world, let's share this. This is a very important topic today. Today, we're going to be talking about incorrect information about the COVID-19. And not only that, we're also going to go a little bit into Dr. Mark's specialty. Dr. Mark, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for letting me share, Mark. I appreciate it.
No, definitely. I love the Hawaiian backdrop. I feel
yeah,
like
thanks. my home office, my little Bambi trailer here.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Keep it. I love it. Keep it organic and keep it real, man. So, So, if you wouldn't mind, before we get into it, maybe just talk to us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the profession and focusing on people.
Sure. So I have a family practice, which sounds strange as being a chiropractic physician. But I've done that work for 35 years now. And I do it because I was real sick when I was a teenager. And it turns out that chiropractic and craniosacral work and acupuncture and yoga and fasting and meditation and all these things helped me heal. And it wasn't the conventional medicine that helped me heal. And so I learned a lot of things along the way to get better. And I decided that I could be useful I figured I could be useful from what I learned. So for the last 35 years, I've been in a family practice setting, just treating everything, doing prenatal, newborns, geriatrics, everything in between. But my specialty is complex and chronic illnesses and patients that fall through the cracks that nobody know what to do with.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we're gonna actually touch on that. So we'll
Okay.
kind of pause that button right there, and let's get into incorrect information about the COVID-19. As we all know, a lot of stuff's being thrown out there on the internet, and everybody believes it's the truth. I don't understand why. And
Yeah.
he knows that the news has an agenda, and I'm not saying that they're all bad, but sometimes they put a little bit of too much Tabasco sauce on there. So,
well, right now there are a lot of unknowns because we don't have enough measures. Not enough people have been tested to really get a perfectly clear picture about what's actually going on. Probably the clearest pictures are coming from Iceland because they have the highest per capita testing of anywhere in the world. Wow. And then also out of South Korea also did a lot of testing. And so they have a clearer picture. Here we hardly have a picture because per capita, so few people have been tested in the US. So it's hard to get a really, really clear picture about, what the mortality rates are and what the incidence of infection are and those kinds of things. But some things are becoming clearer in terms of, what the complications are and who's at risk for complication. Like, for instance, we initially figured that asthmatics were going to be part of the at-risk group, and it turns out that that's not so much true. And then it turns out that obesity is one of the bigger risk factors for complication. And so that's probably why we're seeing more incidents in the US of younger populations having complications relative to other countries, because the incidence of obesity is so much greater in this country. So.
Wow. So we've got a lot of people that are, I call, there's a lot of fear mongers out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And, what would be the best way to maybe address that, as a doctor, to, let's just say they're struggling with that fear factor, but to try to bring them stress levels down? Because I'm sure you're going to talk about what that.
Well, one of the biggest things is mortality rates, because the mortality rates have been highly exaggerated. If you look at the mortality rate, say in South Korea, it's figured that it's somewhere around 0.6 to 0.77%. And so standard influenza is about 0.1% mortality rate. And so it is more significant. It's not just the flu. So there's definitely that, but it's still less than 1%.
When you look at the numbers in the overall picture, I feel like that it makes you go, huh, what's really going on,
Yeah. And then the mortality picture is inflated because hospitals get more money for COVID cases than they do for non-COVID cases. And so if they throw the mortalities into COVID, then they get more money for that kind of thing. So, so you're seeing some inflation. You're seeing some inflation of the numbers associated with that. And we need more time, and we need more testing to really get a clearer picture about what's happening in the U.S.
I agree with you 100%. What's interesting, they did a study, and they were saying that when somebody dies now, what they're starting to see is the numbers kind of being fudged a little bit. So, example, someone dies of a heart attack, that was a COVID. Someone, high blood pressure died or whatever, that was a COVID. Somebody banged their toe on a steel wall, that was a COVID. My point is, it seems like everything's being thrown just at COVID instead of I'm just saying people die every day.
Right.
I'm not saying that the COVID's not real. I know a couple people that had it and fought it, so.
Right. Right. So, and a lot of people are asymptomatic, or they have very little symptoms. It looks as though it came through earlier than we figure on the West Coast. And a lot of people just figured they had bad flus earlier on, say in late January, early February. And so there's that issue too. And so those people are not being included necessarily in the figures. And so it inflates the mortality figures.
You know what? I agree with you. It's interesting. I just got back from Hawaii right before the COVID hit, before we started hearing about it. And what was interesting, I got back on a great vacation from Hawaii. And then all of a sudden, right when I landed, I was sick for 7 days. with the flu, right?
Yep.
I don't know. Not saying it was COVID, but I couldn't get out of my bed for 7 days, and I felt like I was fighting for my life. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't get out. I just kept trying to hydrate it, and
Yeah.
I was keeping my immune system up because my wife, she takes care of me, and with with my greens.
Yeah.
And finally on the 7th day, it just broke. But I did not know. I just thought it's just a horrible flu, and I was thinking, maybe because I'm older now, it's harder for my body to fight it. But then when I come to think of it, I'm like, I think I had it.
Yeah. And so I think it'll be really interesting once we get worked out the antigen studies, the antibody studies, and start doing those and see who's had it and, their experience with it. We'll start to get a clearer picture. I've certainly heard a lot from my patients, the experience of a really terrible flu, in January, February, that was out of the ordinary for them.
Right.
And so I'm curious, some of those people I'd like to pull aside and say, hey, I've got the antibody test. Would you like to know if you got COVID back then?
Wow.
Would be interesting to do. Yeah.
Well, that's some deep stuff. I'm like, I'd like to know. But on another note, I'd like to also kind of tap onto a little bit of chronic and complex illness. It's something that is I call it your specialty, and I would love for you to maybe kind of talk on that and
Sure.
talk about the physical, the chemical, and also the mental. And before we do that, everyone, I just want to let you know that we're going to have live testimonials right after this video. So make sure that you stay on and remember, and make sure we're sharing, because one video can change one person's life. And that's what this is all about. So go for it, doctor.
Okay. I'm convinced at this point, I've been doing work with chronic and complex patients for 35 years. And my work is very much metrics driven. So it's driven around lab tests and follow-up lab tests and things of that nature, and physical exams of various types. So I want to get measurable changes in people. That's what really matters. That's really where I know we did something. And I've become really convinced over time, as I've gotten more and more into genetics, that typically with people with very chronic and complex illnesses, there's a genetic component to their illness. And so what happened is that they have genetic predisposition, and then they had a trigger, and that trigger threw off the balance of their system, and they just can't self-regulate anymore. But typically, if you get into someone that has a long history of Lyme disease or chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia or other or more traumatic brain injuries, that there's a different path in people that have TBIs. One is that they do end up recovering mostly, essentially, and then there's the other group that just does not heal at all. They're severely compromised and seemingly out of proportion to their injury. So when you look at that group of people, there's genetics there that underlie how they responded to that stress. So when people break down from stress, whether it's physical or chemical or emotional stress or a combination of those things, when they break down in a way that seems out of proportion to the stressor, there's typically a genetics that underlie that.
Well, so when you say it by genetics, in my brain, I'm thinking that you're saying genetics, that it's something that was passed down from family.
Yeah, exactly. So when you do genetic curations of a person, you start to see where the weak links are in their system and what you need to do to help them heal. Because basically every gene leads to an enzyme. And so if a gene is compromised, if there's a variant in the gene that compromises it, then it's going to compromise the enzyme. And then it's going to compromise the function. And so if once you start to make those connections, then you can push an enzyme with the cofactors that are involved in the enzyme. So say, for instance, a lot of people have ADHD and obsessive compulsive disorder, or just nervous exhaustion. They're always extremely stressed because they have low MAOA, which is an enzyme that breaks down dopamine and epinephrine and norepinephrine. And so if they have the low MAOA, they're going to have really high catecholamines that are going to drive their system to be incredibly stressed all the time. And then there are cofactors for that, riboflavin being one, B2. And so that person who has that gene variant, they may need very, very high doses of riboflavin to drive that enzyme and then start to see how they'll see their systems change dramatically. People that have never slept through the night, they'll start sleeping. Things of that nature will start shifting. And so it's once you understand things at that level, you can change them in a very, very targeted way, which is really powerful.
Well, I love what you're saying. It brings me to the thought of when we were created, our bodies were meant to heal by itself.
For sure. Yeah.
And so we're putting junk, fast food, candy bars, Snickers, MSG, all in our body. And we start to wonder why we have headaches and migraines and aches and pains, because a lot of the stuff that we're not just eating and consuming, but also our brain. Because it's an old saying, what you think is what you become. And so
there's truth in that for sure.
Right. So it's like, if you come in, it's so funny. If I were to tell you right now, Dr. Mark, and you were depressed, and I said, Dr. Mark, I just want to let you know that you won $1 million yesterday. You would go from depressed to, oh my goodness, you're not only talking different, you walking different. Let me tell you something. You even open up doors different. All of a sudden, it's a mental state, right? But the funny thing is, you take that away. It's funny because we gauge your stuff on things, on what we're going through.
Yeah.
Our finances.
On externals. On externals, right?
There we go. I love it. So I'm saying,
there was a guy a long time ago. He said, "Be in the world, but not of the world."
You know what? You can take that to a whole nother level. I mean, right. And it's the truth. I love it when people say, "Yeah, man, I love that, man." Buddha said, what you think, what you become. I go, brother, Jesus said that. I'm sorry, I had to go there.
Yeah, you did.
Jesus said that, but it's funny.
There are things that are universal. There's knowledge that's universal. So I'm going to get a little wonky with that idea.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's this thing called the reticular activating system. And what it does is it filters out all the information coming into your brain. Okay. That's its job. Okay. And it's a protective mechanism. So, thousands of years ago when we were asleep in the jungle, and there's all that background noise, and we could fall asleep because that background noise didn't mean anything. Right. And then you hear a leaf crack, a dry leaf crack from a footfall, and you wake up in a moment, okay? To protect yourself. And where we notice it now is, say, we're reading a book and we're involved in the book and we don't hear anything around us. Correct. And then we hear a step creak, and then all of a sudden we're back in the room, right? What is that? So it's designed to filter out the world around us for what we're looking for. So we program our reticular activating system by what we choose to pay attention to, what we choose to make important. So over time, that trains the reticular activating system to actually filter the world around us for what we experience. So that's why people who choose to focus on those things that they are grateful for, what do they experience? More of what they're grateful for. People that choose to focus on everything that they can't stand about their life, what are they going to experience? More of those things that they can't stand about their life.
100%. I agree. It's huge because, and I always tell people, and this is something I just started doing, as soon as I wake up, I say, this is going to be a fantastic day. I mean, first, of course, I pray.
For sure.
It's going to be a fantastic day. I'm looking forward to whom God wants me to serve and help. And when you're in that mentality, there's a shift in the air. People don't realize that molecules actually change within your body.
Yeah, for sure. Your body functions differently. Yeah. So this ties back to some research. I love research, right? I love to see how things connect. There was a study done by this outfit called HeartMath. Mm-hmm. You ever heard of them? Okay. Oh, yeah. They did a beautiful study where they had people practice heart-focused appreciation, and they measured their DHEA and their cortisol levels and their secretory IgA, which is a marker for their immune system. Okay. And they followed them for a month, and then they retested them, and they found that only that practice of gratitude led to higher DHEA levels, which is an indication of a person's robustness, lower cortisol levels, which is an indication of stress, and higher secretory IgA, which is a marker of their immune system. And all that changed from that. and how powerful that is.
That's unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to, okay, since we're going there, I got to share this with you. So I had an experience when I was a kid. I was living in Guam. My mom got remarried and we lived on Guam, and my dad was military, so I was a military brat. Lived in Guam for about 2 years, totally different world. And so I'm there, and I remember being a kid, and I always talked to God or whoever people want to talk to, higher being, and talk to God as a kid. My mom used to think I was crazy because she was, Gnostic. She was like, I don't really get into that. And I remember being a kid about 5 years old, getting right next by my bed on my knees, and I said, God, if you are for real, come touch me and open my heart. Exact words. The weirdest thing is that for about 30 minutes, and I remember vividly, for about 30 minutes, I felt this beam of electricity up and down my body with warmth that would not stop.
Sweet, beautiful.
What's a trip about that, this is totally on a whole different subject, but I like to go with it, is that about 2 years ago, my mom called me up and she's like, Mark, have this fibromyalgia. I go, number one, it's not yours. It's not like you can go into a store and go buy it. It's not yours. And because I always said, watch what words that you say, because that affects your
bet.
Because it's a computer.
You bet.
And so I said, it's interesting that she called me up when no, actually I called her up and I said, Mom, because I was having like a God moment or something. And I was like, just feeling this same presence that I was feeling when I was a kid for about 30 minutes. And I was like, whoa, I've felt it maybe a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. And then all of a sudden I go, Mom, my hands literally feel like they're on fire right now. And I go, Mom, put your hand on the pain right now. Watch this. That's what and that's not even like me. I go, watch this. I had this confidence, dude. Like, I don't know. And I prayed for her over the phone, and she's like, the pain is gone. So my point is, doctors, you don't realize how much of a gift that you've been given and how many people you get a touch.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you brought that up. That was a conversation that I was having on a forum just a couple of days ago, because we were talking about how, and it came kind of roundabout, because we were talking about how how docs should dress, appropriately in the office. So we got on the topic of white jackets, white lab coats and that kind of thing. And I have a hard time wearing one, even though it oftentimes is a good idea culturally to make a connection and that kind of thing. I have a hard time wearing them, because as I go through the day, I get hotter and hotter. And it's not a metabolic heat. It's just the heat of working on people. And my hands get really hot through the day, hotter as the day goes on. And so I just threw that out there. I said, that's just, my experience. And then a bunch of docs.
You're like, yes.
Said, yeah, that's me too. Yeah.
What's interesting that you said that, and it's funny, we're going on this whole tangent. I'm going with it. It's all good. It's interesting because I remember when I wasn't there, but reading on it, when Jesus was walking and a whole bunch of people were touching him, and all of a sudden somebody touched him. He's like, yeah. And they're like, dude, everyone's touching you, man. But he felt this power leave.
Different. Yeah.
And so it's funny how, I'm not saying we're Jesus, but I'm seeing how we have this coming out of us. And let me tell you,
right, it's natural to us.
You get drained, especially when you're touching, check it out, because we're a battery that's electrified, spark light.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're touching something, let's say you're touching people with a positive, then all of a sudden you touch a negative. You don't think that's not going to affect you, even though you can help?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Like a battery. But you're already powered up. It's just you could feel that leaving you, literally. Man.
That's a true thing. I'm real left-brained. I love all the science, but I know what I experience also. And there's I'm a vitalist, even though I'm a scientist.
I'm a guitarist.
Okay. So I'm an academic. I love the science, but at the same time, I'm a vitalist, because I see things I experience things directly that are outside the realm of just mechanism. Okay. We're more than mechanism. Yeah. I love the mechanism is really useful for understanding things. They're really useful for modeling. They're really useful for breaking things down and looking at them. But what happens in science oftentimes is that we mistake that for being the bigger picture and the way things work together, right? We miss how they fit in the framework of the rest of the picture. And so there's still, even though, I believe in all this peer-reviewed science, and I do clinical outcome studies, and I do the lab work and all this stuff, there's still magic in there. Yeah.
I love it. I feel like what happens is that we all have a little child inside of us, whether we like it or not. It doesn't matter how you grow up. And I feel that we need to.
At some level, we're all 8 years old.
You know what? It's funny when I speak in front of people and I get nervous and I got a whole bunch of people. I look out in the crowd and I pretend I'm looking at a bunch of kids in diapers. I'm not even joking. It gives me the confidence. Maybe it ain't gonna hurt you, but no, I'm with you 100%. And I just want to say thank you so much for being transparent and being on the show. And our goals is to help as many people out there. So I'm talking to all my fans and people out there. Let's share this to all of our social media. Even if you're not in pain, the bottom line is helping is having a video out there that we can help one person, because we don't know who we're going to help. And doctor, if you wouldn't mind just maybe talking a little bit about maybe before we end off, because I know you're at drforce.com. I want to make sure I got that correct.
Yeah, drforce.com. Yeah.
And anyone that's in the area, where are you located as a near, like just?
Oh, well, I'm Southern Oregon. I'm Ashland, Oregon. Mm-hmm. So I'm just across the border from California. That's how Southern Oregon we are.
Oh yeah. You guys, man, you got both best of both worlds. You're basically
it's beautiful here.
Well, you're basically California.
People ask me, I have friends ask me about how is it living in Ashland. I go, it's great. I feel like I'm living in Mayberry. I keep expecting to run into Aunt B.
Yeah, I miss those days. It's funny because I go back. I got Bonanza. I go with Bonanza.
Right.
All the series. I love going back. I'm a little weird. I love the Twilight Zone and.
Oh, that's great stuff.
Yeah, I'll even go funny. I'll even go Sanford and Son if I want to get a sense of humor.
Sure.
But again, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show, and I look forward to everybody seeing this video. And guys, if you have any questions, please feel free, and Dr. Mark will answer those questions.
Thanks for giving me a chance to share, Mark.
Hey, thank you. Hey, great job.
I thought I had like flu-like symptoms, and so I had this real heavy cough, and I went to urgent care, and they gave me prednisone and some antibiotics and said, come back if you're not feeling better. Well, I just wasn't feeling better, so I ended up going to my family doctor. And the nurse practitioner said, she checked my pulse rate and it was like 122 beats per minute. And she said, either you have a hole in your lungs or you have congestive heart failure. And they took me to Desert Samaritan Hospital. So I was in ICU for a period of 7 days as well. So my first experience was when they let me out, I would when I got out of Desert Samaritan, they actually recommended that I go to UCLA or the Mayo Clinic to be evaluated for a heart transplant. And so, I felt scared. I didn't know whether or not I'd live or not. My mother took me to Dr. Force. And, I barely was able to get out of the car and walk up actually at that time I was trying to take the elevator, but it was like equivalent to a person running 10 miles just for me to walk to the elevator. And so, for the most part, I felt hopeless because I didn't really get a lot of encouragement from the medical doctor. When I went to Mark at first, I was essentially at kind of like a last resort. I mean, I was really in search for someone who kind of believed in the same thing I believed in, which was, isn't there a more holistic way to treat this condition? But I listened to everything that Mark told me to do because I could tell the difference in how I was feeling, and I started to get stronger, and I started to be more alert, and I always felt energized going into his office because he brought a sense of hope to his practice, and he believed in what he was doing, and basically said, hey, if I, one of the things I admired about, and I still admire about Mark is, his view is if he can't help you, he will recommend someone who can better treat you, given your condition. And so, based on that, you have to, at least from everything I've been involved with, you have to have somebody you can trust. And Mark Force is definitely a person that I can trust, or that I do trust, because he basically saved my life. I was able to regain my strength, and I ended up getting better in terms of being able to move around, in terms of being able to sleep well. And it still took me some time because, like in 2006, I was still, getting regular checkups through the medical doctors, getting feedback from the UCLA Medical Center, and I ended up getting put on the wait list for a heart transplant. And at the time, my kids were running track, and I remember making a commitment saying that one day I'll be able to walk up those Mesa Community College bleachers, and I was able to do that. While I was still seeing Mark on a regular basis, getting supplements and adjustments and acupuncture, and getting balanced and making sure that I was taking the right nutrition. And let me back up just a little bit, because when I got out of the Desert Samaritan, I was on 90 prescription drugs a day. It was one drug to do this, another drug to counteract the symptoms of something else, and it was terrible. And my goal, because of how I felt, was to ultimately get off the meds, and I was able to do that. So I listened. I mean, I listened to everything Mark said to do, and I followed his instructions. And I remember one of the things that was refreshing to me, because when I was going through the traditional medical route, it was always discouraging. It was always an inducement of fear, as if, you got to take this drug, otherwise you won't live, kind of thing, and you don't have much longer, and just different things like that. And the only person that provided a source of inspiration and a source of encouragement was Mark and members of my family. So I remember sharing with Mark that I was going to go out to UCLA and get a stress test or get evaluated. And he said, well, if you keep doing what you're doing, they may just tell you, you don't need a heart transplant. And fortunately for me, that was the case. And I even got to the point where I was able to run up the ASU mountain. Initially, I was walking up ASU mountain because that's where my kids went to work out. So I was with a series of Mark's treatments and the things that he directed me to do, and his guidance and my willingness to listen and carry out his instructions. I think that's why I'm here today, and that's my story.